So because I'm a millennial, so I'm going to talk about the gender pay gap in the gig economy, evidence from over 1 million rideshares, and I'll give you more details on that. So currently, you have this very important statistic that according that women earn 88 cents to the dollar compared to men, despite having very similar jobs. And where is this gap coming from? Two purported reasons are either that women have fewer hours of work. I mean, they work fewer hours. At the same time, they also have very weaker continuity, or they have they're more likely to have disruption in their labor force participation because of other circumstances that happen to their lives. And this is basically so it is arguably what we call as a job flexibility penalty that is put against women. So especially in traditional markets. So the question now is, what if we have a particular market where we eliminate this penalty on job flexibility? So we basically have a gig economy. So if you basically take on your phones and like grab an Uber, for example, that's basically like one kind of universe where the gig economy exists. So basically in a gig economy, you have independent workers who do small pieces of work in real time, and basically the idea there that would ease or eliminate the problems of job flexible penalties. And the gig economy apparently right now is also increasing, with 15% of individuals primarily doing independent work and about 30% also doing some kind of part-time work. And from one survey, about 86% of women would believe that the gig economy would increase their opportunity towards more equal pay. So the kind of data set that we're gonna specifically look into is that of Uber. It's it's a ride-sharing platform where basically it coordinates riders and drivers so that you can basically go to the destination that you want to go to. So the question right now, and in addition to that, the algorithm, the company claims that the algorithm is gender blind in terms of both the dispatch and in terms of the pay structure. Basically, it doesn't incorporate gender into their pay structure formula, and at the same time, it's transparent. You can basically calculate it on your own, and the pay structure is also directly tied to output, and it is not negotiated. So, given all these very nice circumstances where we don't have the likelihood of a inflexibility towards work, so does the Uber gig economy eliminate the gender pay gap? So, the answer is no. In the U.S., so this is the whole universe of data in the U.S. that would include 1.8 million drivers and over 740 million ride shares. So there is a 7% difference favoring men over women in terms of the gender pay gap. And basically, the paper asks, where is this gender pay gap coming from? So one thing where it's not coming from is that the gender pay gap doesn't come from the discrimination among riders and drivers. So there is So when they put it into the regression, basically there is no evidence of discrimination between a rider and driver preferring to ride a car on Uber. But where it comes from could be divided into three parts. So one is when and where. So for this particular data set, they focus largely on the city of Chicago to decompose the data. So the results could be summarized into three parts. So one is when and where people tend to drive. So in terms of when, men are more likely to drive during the graveyard shift, during night hours, whereas women tend to drive substantially more on Sundays and Saturdays afternoons, especially with the guys looking at like Sunday football, for example. That's one of the anecdotal reasons that they gave. And apparently, it offsets by 7%, whereas an issue with where is that women appear to avoid locations that may be unsafe due to higher crime or to more intoxicated drivers. The second other reason where the gender pay gap also exists is in terms of driver experience. So the attrition rate among men and women is pretty different, with 76% higher attrition rate for women as opposed to men. And basically that affects their ability to learn while they perform in the market. And finally, that accounts for 36% of the gender pay gap. And finally, which is also quite surprising, is that apparently speed drives a major difference between men and women. And it's not because that the platform incentivizes men to drive more faster than women. It's also, again, from what they argue, it could also be a manifestation of the underlying norms between men and women, or how men and women drive differently, basically. And so one thing that we could take out from this is basically we could also have, so while there are differences, we also have to look at the broader institutional forces that differentiates the choices between men and women to drive.